Hello and welcome to Talking Leadership. This is Eric Perez welcoming you to episode 2 of our Emerging Leaders podcast. It's been, suffice it to say, a very interesting discussion that I had with our first guest, Rebecca Ash, and now I'm moving to our second guest, and I'm sure we're going to get some really good insights into this leadership thing from our guest. So I'm just going to do a little bit of a background to my guest today, who started his career being a junior sales support officer for Elders, has worked as a receiver point operator for CBH Group, and is now an agronomist with Elders. Can I welcome to the podcast Mr. James Bidstrup?
G'day, Eric. First of all, let me just say thank you very much for this opportunity. It's really great to be here.
No worries, mate. I appreciate your time. So for the sake of the listeners, I am talking to James, who lives in sunny WA. Can you just tell everyone what part of the world we're currently recording this from, mate? I'm in Brisbane, obviously, but where are you in WA, mate?
So I'm lucky enough to be on the southeastern coast of Western Australia in a small town called Esperance. It's about 720 k's from Perth, and it's my own piece of paradise. So this is my first season as an agronomist down here, and I'm really loving the role.
Oh, brilliant. Excellent, mate. So the purpose of the this particular podcast series is to get some perspectives, not from established leaders, but definitely trying to get that sense from emerging leaders, what their thoughts on around some key topics to do with the leadership question. So I'll start where I started with Rebecca, and by asking you, why have you taken on leadership roles in your career at this stage?
I find it deeply satisfying and really a way to give back, because agriculture has been incredibly good to me. It's offered me a massive amount of opportunities, as well as support from really fantastic established leaders who have helped me get to where I am today. So to me, it's a way to say thank you to the generations before me, but also to make sure that we have continuity and a new generation of leaders in agriculture.
Fantastic, mate. James, can I ask a question? What part of the ag sector are you with, and what drove you to become an agronomist?
So I'm currently in the grain sector. I have massive interest. I have massive interest in the livestock sector as well, but I work primarily in the grain sector, and that's really, for me, began with the 1970 Nobel Peace Prize winner Norman Borlaug. He's an incredible man. Some would call him the father of the Green Revolution, a geneticist and agricultural scientist by trade. He is credited with saving the lives of 1 billion people. But to me, he's just a fellow agriculturalist who followed his passion and helped an incredibly large amount of people. So for me, I love the idea that just doing every day something that I love and something I'm passionate about could actually have a really positive impact on other people as well.
Fantastic, James, and that's a very nice segue into the next couple of questions, I guess, and it's around leader capabilities. So, from your experience, what have you seen to be the most critical abilities or skills in the leaders that you've had something to do with in your travels and work?
I think my number one capability for a leader would have to come back to integrity. And for me, that really comes back to just having strong moral principles and being able to stick by those. Leaders often find themselves in positions of strong responsibility, and I need to know that they can be dependable and dedicated to the people who they help lead, as well as those around them. Apart from that, I would also say it's really important for them to be passionate. I think Napoleon said that a leader is a dealer in hope. I'm not sure if that comes off as sort of cynical to some people, but I think that it's really important for leaders to be able to inspire people. I've heard it said that inspiration is the greatest human act. So I'd really like to think that leaders are able to help others find their own passion as well.
Yeah, amazing,
And
mate. I was going to say Napoleon needed a lot of to inspire hope,
but
given what he did through Europe.
but just sort of just going back to that inspiration, Eric, I would say that through that inspiration, one of the most important things that leaders do is they must bring the best out of people. They have to be able to help others find what they really care about, and also give them the ability to find find their best performance, basically.
Yeah, mate. And I'm thrown for a six here because I haven't expected some of these responses, and it's quite interesting to me that you've picked integrity, passion, and and inspiration as part of what you see as skills for a leader. So, can I ask, in addition to those, what are your views on capabilities such as, and I'll start with the first one here, strategic thinking?
Definitely a major factor. I think that leaders should be able to see problems as they arise and hopefully nip them in the bud. I think that it's really important. Strategic thinking would be a really important factor for things like communication and just being able to find the right medium to express themselves to the people around them in as well.
Excellent. Next one, foresight. Capacity to have foresight.
I think that's also an important trait. Basically, just in the way that a leader must be able to bring their group through, most likely at some point, problematic circumstances, and so being able to foresee how to resolve any issues that may arise is quite an important trait.
One thing that seems to be an underlying skill set here, and please tell me if I'm off the mark here, but it seems communications in your travels is important. Communication from the leader to those being led. Is that a fair statement?
Oh, absolutely. Communication, it really is key. That's not just a slogan. I think even if it's just communicating so that everyone is on the same page, but mostly it's a two-way street as well for leadership. I think leaders should know what is expected of them and what people wish, so that they can lead them to the right place as well.
That's an amazing response and a nice segue into the next question. And I'm looking forward to your response to this one. What do you believe, or do you feel emerging leaders like yourself bring to the table that established leaders don't?
I believe that emerging leaders bring the respect and ideas of the next generation. And that really opens up new possibilities that weren't conceivable in the past, whether that be in agriculture or just in general. I think the constant progression of technology and the amazing way that our world rapidly changes means that leaders must be dynamic.
Okay, yeah, that's an interesting statement, and I'd like to unpack your answer just a little bit if we can, James. In your travels through university, and I guess in your travels now in the world of work, do your peers, not just in your workplace, but in former students that you went to uni with or had some kind of training with, does the issue of what you're looking for in leaders ever get discussed? And if it does, what are the kinds of things that are being discussed from I guess your now generation of leaders?
Yeah, no, I do discuss this with people a lot. I think something that a lot of the people I'm very close with from my time at uni, we all discuss that someone with sort of a strong moral conviction, someone who's able to stick to their beliefs and able to express those, communicate those well, is something that we all find quite a necessary trait that a leader should have. Apart from that, I would say that someone we really believe in, someone we believe can bring the best out of us. So I think those are really important things.
So following, and I appreciate that response, James. So just to finish this issue around established versus emerging leaders, to what extent do you think the industry that you've been a part of, or the sector you've been a part of, either growing up or through uni, it has affected your view of leadership? Do you think there's been an influence, or has it more been about you and your perspectives on that?
No, I would say that I'm very blessed to have been in contact with some fantastic leaders in the agricultural industry, and particularly during my time at uni, I've had quite a bit of mentoring by some people who I really highly respect.
You mentioned that you had some mentoring through uni. So was that a formal arrangement that you set up? Was it something informal? Was it a hybrid of the two? So like what was the arrangement now, without naming who the person was? Obviously we want to keep a level of confidentiality here, but from your travels around this thing around mentoring, was it a formal gig or was it an informal one, mate?
Eric, I'm very lucky. I've actually got I would probably say I have three mentors. One of which is an agronomist and a fantastic and highly respected agronomist in the West Australia. The other is a very well known and very well respected member of the livestock industry, and the third is actually just finished his master's degree in business leadership. So I really bounce different ideas off those three people, just because they have such varied skill sets and experiences, and I obviously sort of ask them different questions relating to the industries that they're in. But it has been a very much an informal arrangement. Just people I've bumped into, and not people I've met and had a really strong feeling like they can help me progress and grow and develop, and they've been very generous in offering their help throughout a few years of mentoring.
Mate, that's good, great response and great bit of learning for someone like myself, because I've read a little bit about mentoring, and I claim no expertise in the area, but I think you're on the right track in that. I've had a lot of good mentors, as well as I've come up in the industry that I'm in, which is the commercial seafood industry, and if you take every little bit of wisdom that comes your way, you can often find a kernel of truth for yourself that might help you in your travels, whether it's professional or in your personal life. Because I tend to learn from the people I speak to, and much like yourself now, that this is something to keep pushing, not just with emerging but existing leaders, that a mentor is someone that is a good sounding board and an ability to detox without having to do it necessarily around the people that you work with from 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, if you get my meaning.
I totally agree.
James, this again, you set up a nice segue into the next set of questions. Now, this is around leader development. So you've kicked the ball off by saying you've done some mentoring in your current position or positions you've had before. Have you had a chance to do some kind of leader development? And if you did, what did that look like?
I have done a bit of mentoring in the past, and I've also that's also been through the residential college that I lived at whilst at university. So they offered a little bit of leadership training there, which was fantastic. I really appreciate the time they put into that. As well as that, I was lucky enough to attend a VOCAG in Melbourne last year, and during that time they offered quite a wealth of knowledge on how emerging leaders can really impact the coming few years of agriculture, which is has a very exciting horizon.
In a particular sector of agriculture that you're all familiar with, or in agriculture generally?
I would have to say that agriculture generally, to be honest. I think that the amount of investment currently going into agriculture is fantastic. It could be more. I would love it to be more, but it's great to see that agriculture is really attracting some of the best and brightest to help solve challenges and maximise opportunities.
We need that, mate, because I'm not the best and brightest, so we need people like you out there doing that stuff, mate. Because I'm not the brightest spark in the world. But listen, so this next question, and you can tell me to go jump on this one, but I know that you're not you're relatively new to the workforce, and so you may not have a view, but I will ask the question anyway. Do you have a view, mate, on lifelong learning?
Oh, I have a strong view, so I won't be telling you to go anywhere.
Excellent.
To me, it's just it's a matter of curiosity and finding something you're passionate about. I think it's a great way, whether that's vocational learning, whether that's taking up new hobbies, whether that's post-grad studies. I think it's a really beneficial thing, and I think it's great for whether you're using it for in the workplace, whether you're using it socially. I really strongly believe that everyone should just have a go at new things like that, because you really can't lose out on having a bit of extra knowledge and information, I think.
I couldn't have said that better myself, and I really mean that. I couldn't have said that better myself. So can I ask that, moving into something I'm calling leadership models, what individuals have you drawn help from to develop yourself as a leader? Now, I might put this in a way that doesn't bind you to one response, but maybe some multiple responses in that. When we talk about, how do you develop yourself into particular roles, have you drawn on leaders from different parts of your life? Have you drawn them from solely your university experience, or has it been a mix of things? Because I'm cognizant, and I'm very much aware that sometimes people fall into leadership roles without having sought them. Others are actively looking to be leaders into the future, or you get sort of somewhere on the continuum. People fall through what can be multiple careers. So I'm going to stop blabbing in a second. Ask you that question. So how have you drawn on what you see as good leadership? Who have you drawn that from, mate?
First and foremost, I think that my mentor in the grains industry has had a massive effect. He's an industry leader, but also has a strong role in sort of development of people coming through university. So he's had a really big impact on me.
So without naming that individual, I'd like to thank him for his inspiration of the younger generation of leaders, and that he should keep doing that, whoever that person is. Go on, mate. Go on.
And then it really comes back to my family. My dad is a massive influence on my life. He's probably one of the more quiet leaders, I would have to say, but he just in the things he does every day, he's incredibly inspiring, and I really respect the way he goes about things, and I appreciate the way he's taught me.
I'm not going to let you go on that one, because this has come up. No, sorry, but this has come up a few times. So it's about introversion versus extroversion. Do you think again, from your own experiences here, and I'm asking you to draw on the James experience of the world. That do you think there's leaders are better to be extroverted or introverted, or does that matter in your travels? Can you be the quiet achiever and still be a good leader? Is that, or what have you found in your travels, mate?
I would have to say that personally, I would prefer a extroverted leader.
Yeah.
Not that I at all believe that that is a better leader, but I think that I've found a lot more extroverted leaders in my travels. And this is a very interesting conversation, though. I would have to say another really strong influence on my leadership has been a book called The Hagakure by I think 18th century, Japanese clerk, Yamamoto Senatomo. He wrote about it's a practical and spiritual guide drawn from collections of Japanese culture. It's really actually taught me a lot about what it means to be a leader, what it means to serve others, and what it means, what that kind of lifestyle entails.
Okay. So is part of your view of this thing called leadership, or models of leadership, and the people you've seen, that thing about being a servant to the people that you're leading, and it's not just them, whoever they are, serving your interests, but that you're giving something back the other way. Is that what you mean?
That is exactly what I mean. I couldn't have said that better myself. I think
Okay.
it's about the serving the best interests and the desires of your group.
But that's thank you for the assessment there. I've got to get something right in these podcasts, I guess. So almost to the end here, mate, and I just have a couple of more questions here, and this is again under leadership modeling. Do you think there's such a thing as a perfect leader?
No, sorry, I'm not a believer in perfection in any way, shape, or form. Unfortunately, I think that even in the way that humanity itself is inherently imperfect, and that is perfectly that is fine by me. I sometimes grimace at the standards of which current leaders, established leaders, are held to, simply because people want leaders to be saintly, and ignore the hypocrisy of the fact that we're all human. I think leaders can be anyone amongst us. So I wouldn't hope for them to be perfect in any way.
I was just going to say, for the sake of our listeners, that's a very sage piece of advice in anyone's travels. That look, and I think there's the wisdom in what you've just said. Then, as you go along, you're looking to be as flawless a leader as you can be. And the unfortunate thing about that is that as soon as you make a mistake or two, you're brought to earth very quickly. So you can only do what you can do. And as long as you're doing that, I think using the words that you used at the start of the podcast with a high degree of integrity, and you're trying to be the best person, best self that you can be, you really can't ask for more than that. And that's a good attitude to take in any sphere of life, let alone when we're talking about the leadership game. So James, just as a final question, and this is one I'm asking in all the different podcast series, because I'm particularly interested in people's view on this statement. Leaders are born, not made.
Going back to one of my biggest influences, my father, he quite often tells me that character is unveiled under pressure. So I would have to say that that leadership is something that is definitely made. I think that no one is born with the skill set, and I think that anyone can have the skill set of leadership.
Nice, particularly nice way to end the podcast on that thought, James. So again, to remind the listeners, I've been speaking with James Bidstrup, who is an agronomist with elders in Western Australia. James, thank you for your time, mate.
Thank you very much, Eric. I really appreciated the opportunity to speak today.
Mate, it's been a pleasure. And for the listeners, thank you again for joining us on what is episode 2 of the Emerging Leaders podcast. Thank you again, and I'll catch you all on the next podcast.